you for joining us. The Jewish leadership said something that was very hypocritical. They resented Rome. From the beginning, when they were taken captive into Babylon, they resented being under the Babylonians, and then under the Persians, and then under the Greeks, and now under the Romans. We're in slavery to no one, they said, like in John chapter 8. And so to say, we have no king but Caesar, that was hypocritical. They resented being under Caesar. They believed that their king was to be God, that they were to be an independent theocratic nation, not under the auspices of Rome. But hey, whatever it takes to get Jesus crucified, they were going to do it. They had a mock trial in the middle of the night, and they weren't going to stop there. They were going to do whatever was necessary to get this threat to their position and their security and even their greed. Remember, he that week had cast out the money changers for the second time, and the high priest, he was the main businessman in that, so you get the idea. So Pilate just finished hearing them say, if you let him go, he claimed to be a king, and boy, Caesar won't like that. And of course, Pilate had already gotten in trouble with Caesar for his treatment of the Jews. So here we have Pilate worried. Therefore, when Pilate heard these words, "You're no friend of Caesar's if you let this man go," he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judgment seat at a place called the Pavement, in Hebrew called Gabbatha. Now it was the day of preparation for the Passover. That sounds confusing because they ate the Passover the night before. But the Galileans would eat the Passover on Friday night, and the Jews of Jerusalem would eat it on Saturday night. And so you actually had two separate days in which Passover was observed. And so this particular Friday was preparation day for those that observed the Passover on Saturday night. Okay, so, all right. It was the day of preparation for the Passover, about the 6th hour. And in the Jewish way of telling time, the 6th hour is noon. But John was using the Roman way of telling time, and that started at midnight. So we're looking at about 6 in the morning. He said to the Jews, "Behold your king." See, what had happened up to this point? What had happened? The night before, he had been spat upon and beat about the face, and then already on this particular day, he has been scourged and had a purple robe put on him and a reed in his hand for the scepter and a crown of thorns put on his head. He had been spit upon twice, beat about the face the night before, and then beat about the face by the Roman soldiers again. And so he was being sarcastic. Hey, look at your king. They cried out, "Away with him." Now, away with was a way of saying, put him to death. Away with him, crucify him. Pilate said, "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priests answered, listen to this, "We have no king but Caesar." They would have never said that in any other situation. And so then he handed him over to them to be crucified. Isaiah 53:8. I've always read that, and I don't think I read it emphasizing it the right way. Of course, Isaiah 53 is a prophecy about the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus and the reason for the crucifixion. It says, "By oppression and judgment he was taken away." Notice, oppression and judgment. In other words, wicked, unfair, crooked judgment. As for his generation, and then here's a question, and I was always trying to use the next phrase as a participle, and it's a question. I'm going to try to put it this way. As for his generation, people at the same time, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living for the transgression of my people, to whom the stroke was due. I never had read it that way. I asked the Lord to help me understand it. So it's like, who in his generation, the people around him, really figured out that the stroke was due to them and he was bearing their transgressions for them? Nobody saw that. What they saw was this pest was being taken care of. Yeah. Oh, but they saw later. Have a wonderful day.